Finance, and if you can't make it into Car City has up to 3,000 used cars online.
British leaders are demanding to know why one of the country's premier law enforcement bureaus ignored massive corruption and misconduct by private investigators. The serious and organised crime agency SOCA allegedly knew about, but turned a blind eye to, activities including illegal wiretapping and hacking. Well, now the agency is refusing to name which people or firms ordered the bugging for fear of damaging their reputation. Let's talk about this with investigative journalist Tony Gosling. He's in London. What possible reason could SOCA have turned, as I said, a blind eye to this for what appears to be 6 years?
Well, it's an incredible story, this, Kevin, isn't it? Back in the 1970s, we heard that the flying squad, as they were at the time, from Scotland Yard, were rather too friendly with the London's criminal gangs from the East End and used to spend rather too much time down the pubs drinking with them. I get the feeling that's what's going on here with the Serious Organised Crime Agency now, because this is a very serious inquiry they've done. Actually, two inquiries, one from SOCA, Project Riverside, and another one from the Information Commissioner, which is called Project Baird. But what's essentially going on is it's quite clear that the hacking inquiry which Lord Leveson conducted is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a massive industry out there of criminals, actually what they're doing is posing as private investigators, hacking into lots of databases, mostly government databases where people have given information to government agencies, obviously in confidence, and this information is now coming out. I'm talking about the National Health Service, the police, tax authorities, banks, councils and utility companies. So some of these have been privatised, but most of them are still within the government. Now, when we give, as citizens, these agencies our private details, we expect them to stay private. It's quite clear now that's not been happening. Both hacking and what's called blagging, which is where these private investigators will phone up or phone you as an individual pretending to be one of these big agencies and try and get that information, and if they do get it, then they get a financial reward. Now, quite clearly this is criminal, but going back just about a year and a half, there was a bit of a revelation about the Project Riverside, just to give you an idea of just how serious this is. But what was happening was that criminals, organised gangs, were getting private investigators and insiders to actually go into the police national computer and delete intelligence files. So a detective might have been working on a case for, say, 6 or 7 months, come in one Monday morning and find, oh my goodness, all the files have disappeared. This kind of thing, as well as getting information, private information about specific addresses, phone numbers and private details of individual detectives and police. That's how serious this is. And so I wonder whether this Serious Organised Crime Agency isn't actually somehow part of organised crime itself. If it's not doing anything about this, Keith Vaz at the Home Affairs Select Committee is trying to get something moving. Yeah. But if it's not doing anything about it, why are they being paid public money?
Tony, another element to this as well, it's emerged that one of the people bugged was a former British Army intelligence officer. Surely that constitutes a direct threat to national security. When you hear all the fuss that's going on about Bradley Manning and Snowden, potentially something's going on here.
Yeah, it's extremely worrying, and I think this is actually something that it really is about the rule of law, and it indicates the fact that the Serious Organised Crime Agency have done nothing about this. Actually, it looks like all they've been doing is bean counting and collecting this information, but they're not actually prosecuting. Why is this? I mean, one of the previous boss of Serious Organised Crime Agency, Sir Ian Andrews, has said the reason that they don't want to do this is that it could taint big companies' names and the names of powerful people. Well, surely that means that these people are above the law.
Didn't seem to worry so much when it came to that.
Well, that's because there was a focus at the time on the news. I mean, let's not forget, Nick Davis and others did a hell of a lot to actually persuade and push the police into starting to do prosecutions against the News of the World. I think that's what we need now, right now, and that's right from the top, from the Prime Minister and from the Leader of the Opposition, to force the Serious Organised Crime Agency to take this evidence that they've got and to use it to prosecute people. Otherwise, Britain is a joke. If there's no rule of law in this country, if these people can continue to get away with it, creating a massive industry, what they're doing is they're actually giving a green light to organised crime. That's a very serious thing to be happening in London, and we need to stop it right now, as Keith Faz from the Home Affairs Select Committee is trying to do.
One final thought. Some of these companies allegedly involved are blue chip companies, very important companies for the British economy. I guess it's also not a good thing to be coming out at a time when the British economy is not in great health anyway, is it?
Well, the British economy is going to be in even worse health if this is allowed to continue. If criminal companies are allowed to get away with it, that means that legitimate companies, honest firms, are actually being overtaken by those companies. If they're able to make profits and get an advantage over honest, law-abiding companies, that's why this is so important, Kevin, is because it effectively means that we start to go down the road of a criminal state. That is to say, the criminals win out while the honest people go down, and we seriously do not want that to go any further here in Britain, which is why it must go to the top level now. The top people, that is to say Prime Minister and Leader of Opposition, have got to act on this subject right now. We cannot have police doing investigations and then coming back and finding their files deleted. That means there's no rule of law. We can't have that here in Britain, Kevin.
Tony Gosling in Bristol tonight, investigative journalist as you are. Thank you for your thoughts.